I'm here with Matt of Wraith to talk about their latest record, Fueled by Fear, out June 28th on Prosthetic Records. First of all, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me about this record, to speak with me about the band. How are things with you? Are you guys preparing for the summer tour?
We are, yeah. We're totally into tour mode. We have a big show in Salt Lake City on the 22nd of this month, June 22nd. So we're kind of practicing that set. That's going to be about an hour long, which for a Wraith set is a long time. That's 20 songs or something. So we're trying to get all those hammered out, and then we're going to shift immediately into tour mode, playing lots of new stuff, and we're looking forward to it.
I was going to say, for you guys, that's like a double vinyl.
Right, yeah, it's going to be a lot of music. So we're ready for a lot of fast music. So it's not that we're,
Yeah, it's not like you guys are taking your sweet time to get from point A to point B. You guys pretty much know where you're going, so you just want to go there as fast as possible.
Yeah, we jokingly say all gas, no brake. So
yeah, definitely. And this summer, you guys are going to be touring with another band that has a very similar approach, which is Midnight.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like I'm heartbroken. I got to share this with you. You guys are coming to Toronto when I'm not in Toronto. When I'm traveling to Finland, and I was so looking forward to this tour package because it's outstanding tour package. I don't think anybody should be missing this tour that you guys are on this summer with Exciter, Midnight. You guys, like, it's killer, all killer, no filler.
Yeah, we are extremely excited about it. Hellwitch, Wraith, Exciter, Midnight. I mean, you really can't ask for much better than that. My only, I guess, just the disappointing part for me is that we're not going everywhere. We had pick a certain amount of dates, and I know some people are upset that we're not hitting their area, but hopefully over the course of the year we will. That's the goal.
You guys have been getting a lot of messages about coming to Brazil.
Well, always Brazil. That's a hot one. Always come to Brazil. But yeah, there's some. We always see the messages about us neglecting the East Coast, and that's never an intentional thing. It's just the opportunities that we've gotten or the weekend trips that we've taken haven't quite made it all the way to the East Coast. So we're playing a couple East Coast states. Florida's another one. People are bummed we don't go to Florida. So hopefully we'll get down there at some point.
Well, now you're going to have a new album. You're going to have plenty of reasons to travel a little bit more. And speaking of the new album, let me ask you, what fuels your fear?
Oh, man. That's what the album talks about. That's a great question. So we actually came up with the title. Our drummer Mike came up with the title while we were recording Undo the Chains. He played me a riff, which ended up being the main riff for the title track, Fueled by Fear. And I remember we record the records at my house. We were sitting in this room, actually, our basement or jam room. And I was like, we got to record that because I think that could be something. And then we associated it right away with Fueled by Fear. So, I mean, Undo the Chains came out 3 years ago now. Is it 3 years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm no good at I think it was 3 years ago. So, for 2 years, we had been cooking up song ideas, and I had been writing a lot of ideas down in lyrics. So the themes are mostly kind of the state of the world, the tension, political tension, military tension, all the events that took place, COVID and post-COVID, and just kind of seeing people respond and react to certain things and really trying to focus on what it is that scares people. And I think the record cover that was my attempt to illustrate what the themes of the record are. It's Reapers, it's, missiles, tanks, generals. It's just kind of that impending doom
and gloom.
Yeah.
But in a very fun, aggressive way, which is always your style. And I think that's something that this record continues that tradition and that approach. Now we know what fuels your fear. What fuels your musical inspiration? When it comes time to write a new record, what is normally your starting point?
Well, that's a great question. It honestly always looks different. I think as a band, we've gotten in the habit of exchanging riffs. I always like to brag on my bandmates because they're all fantastic musicians and they all we all carry equal weight. So our group text is almost always riffs flying back and forth, whether it's Jason or whether it was Chris or it's Mike plays, great guitar. So it's just us exchanging a lot of riffs. And then I will catalog song ideas in my phone notes. So I probably have a list of 75 song ideas that just titles, I'll hear a phrase that I think is cool. I'll read something I think is cool. I'll come up with something I think is cool. And I'll just put it in my phone notes. And then typically the way it goes is we'll hear a riff. If we like it, I'll associate a song title with it right away. So then we know, that's Fueled by Fear, right? So now when we're writing it, we all know what the song is called. And I know that's probably backwards because a lot of bands will have Iron Maiden song 2 and then they don't name it until the end of the record. But for me, I like to associate a title with it right away because I feel like it sets the tone. Then we're building the music around what we know the song is going to be called already, and very seldom does that title change. Every once in a while we'll be like, oh shit, we can't call it Escape. That's a Metallica song. So we'll have to come up with the alternative title, but the theme will remain the same. So we really try to build it around the idea lyrically, and then the music, we really try to like emphasize what that song is about lyrically with the music.
Yeah, I got a friend of mine from a band in Finland that every time he's doing demos, all the songs are named Waves. So it's really hard for me to try to explain to him which one I like, because it's like it's either Waves 1 or Waves 4. It's just
Yeah,
like it's just a notion of waves, let me put it that way. Uh,
sure. Yeah, I know it's different for everybody. So I don't know how many other bands do it that way, but that is the way that we approach it.
I like your take on it. I think it's great. And the one of the things I noticed listening to this album from the get-go was that it felt to me like this was the longest record you guys ever released, but I didn't want to jump the gun. So I actually did my due diligence. I did my research, as the new kids now say it. And I went and I checked it out, and it was like, yeah, this is the longest record that you guys have ever released. What inspired you to go a little bit beyond what your normal threshold has been?
So we actually overwrote. I mean, there's songs that we didn't include on the record that we've recorded. So at some point, we hope that those, I'm sure they will, whether it's an EP or a split or they make it to the next record. But I think with us, we knew that we were signing to Prosthetic. We had actually signed to Prosthetic a year before we made the announcement. So I think for us, it was kind of our moment. We thought, well, we're going to have the backing of Prosthetic Records, and we don't want to shit the bed for a lack of, better term. So we're like, well, let's just do it. We're going to write a record. It's going to be a lot of people don't know that we've been a band since 2016, and this is our, I don't know, fifth record, and we've had some splits and an EP. So we've had a lot of music. So to a lot of people, this is going to be their first time really either seeing us or hearing us. And we didn't want to give them 25 minutes or 30 minutes. We thought if we're going to have the platform, let's give them 45 minutes of what Wraith can do. So it was very intentional.
Let me, I think probably I'm going to be in a minority here. I was disappointed that was not 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Not that I'm complaining that there's not I'm not how can I put it this way? I don't feel like the album is diluted by being longer. That's not what I'm saying. But the experience that you guys have gotten me used to are shorter compact records that just kind of like smack you around for 30 minutes, and
Yeah.
then by the time you gather your thoughts, you're ready for another smack around for another 30 minutes more. So this
Sure.
album going a little bit long for me, it was hard to adjust to it because it felt like, wow, it should have ended here, but it's still going. So,
Yeah.
for somebody who's more familiar with the band, which was my case, it took me a little bit longer to appreciate the length of the record.
Yeah, and that was something. I mean, I use the phrase, and the guys are probably tired of me saying it, but ear fatigue all the time, because I'm a metal fan and I get it. And I was really concerned that kind of our core fan base would be upset that it was a little longer. But my hope is that people are grateful that they get an extra 15 minutes of Wraith, because realistically, the album cycles are going to be a little longer now. I think our first couple came out always within a year of each other, and then Chains to now has been a little longer. And if I had to guess, the way that the music business works is the next one is going to be, it's not going to be next year. It's probably going to be a little longer yet. So hopefully we give them more, and you get to spend more time with the 45 minutes. And by the time you're good and tired of it, something else comes out, and you can dive into that one.
The other aspect of this record that I thought was really important, at least for me, because I think you guys always captured it, but sometimes it's harder to capture on a longer record, which is a feel of a live album. This album to me sounded like a live record recorded in the studio, which captures who you guys are as a live band. And is this an important aspect for you to have that more raw, natural sound coming across in the record? Because a lot of people are also going to discover you guys playing live, and that's the experience that they're going to get.
Definitely. I think one of the comments or compliments that means the most to me is when somebody sees us live and they say, "Wow, that was just like the record, but better. Like I got to see you play those songs and there was no bullshit. There was no fluff added to it. It's just like the record. And to me, I think the sign of a good band is that. Can you do it? Can you replicate it without the studio tricks or, you know, the 17 layered guitars or the 5 harmonies that don't exist live because we only have 2 hands? I think a lot of bands do that and it's cool, but I don't want to be that band. I want you to see us play Fueled by Fear or hear us play Code Red and it sounds the way it did on the record. And you know, we used all the same amps, the same drum set. You know, we don't use plugins. Like it's all the stuff that we are going to put in the van and bring with us all over North America that recorded the record. So that is really important. I think that's to me that's a real compliment. I wear that with a lot of pride. I think the record sounds like the live show and vice versa. I would hate to have somebody leave and say, well, I'm going to listen to the record in my car. You know, it wasn't that good live. I would much rather people are impressed when they see us live.
Is the design of the album, from a track listing point of view, taking the same sort of approach, thinking of the track listing of a record the same way you think of a track listing for a set?
100%. I mean, we countless garage sessions and hundreds of beers later, we finally agreed on the order of the record. That's something that we spend a tremendous amount of time talking about because it is important. You can't have 6 lightning fast songs before you get a break, and then you can't introduce a slow song before people got a taste of the fast stuff. So yeah, that's another part of the process. I think we get it all written, and then we all of us start talking about, well, where's that song going to go? Is that going to be a B-side song? Should it be an A-side song? Do we want to start the record with that? How are we going to end the record? So yeah, sequencing is a huge part. And we're all album guys. You know, we all listen to records, which I think is what most metal fans are, right? You don't buy a record and then listen to the single only, or you don't go on Spotify and just play the single over and over again. I mean, any metal fan worth their salt plays the record from track 1 until it's over, and you might pick a favorite song, but you have to, that's part of the art, you know, that's part of the process. So whenever somebody puts a record out, I always make sure that I listen to it for the first time in the way that they sequenced it, because I know that that's part of the plan, right? Just like the songwriting and the album art, the sequencing is really important.
Yeah, I've actually had albums that I listened to that I really digged it, but on my own playlist, I changed the track ordering because I didn't like the original. It just didn't vibe for me. And then
Sure.
by changing it around, I created my favorite outlook
The
of that record. And then when I
ideal
listen to
version.
the record, yeah, when I listen to the record in that order, I'm like, wow, this is 10 times better than the original. Because
Yeah.
everybody opinions are like assholes. We all got one, right? So it's the
I'll
you
think.
know whatever it takes, for you to enjoy your music. And I think you guys did a phenomenal job from that standpoint on this record from a design output, because you also had more songs, you also had more length, and I'm thinking that brought more headaches in order to get the track listing to where you guys wanted to go.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I appreciate that because it's definitely something we paid a lot of attention to. I think sequencing the record is crucial.
The solos on this album, I love the solos on the record, and I always felt like the solos on this record had a little bit of a distance from the rest of the sound. There was a little bit more clarity when it came to the mix, when it came to the production behind them. They always added value to the songs. They didn't feel like they were there because we got to put a solo there. So there was 2 aspects to it: the adding value to the feel of the song, but also the more clear output when it comes to the specific guitar sound. Uh, what role does that play for you? What role do you see in a guitar solo when it comes to one of your songs and having that more clarity around it?
Yeah, it is really important. That's really more like I always equate it to like a finishing carpenter, right? It's a different person that comes in and makes the house look nice once it's built. But you could live in the house either way, right? Before the trim and finishings are all installed. You don't. That's what makes the house nice. So some songs don't need a guitar solo, and Jason is great about that. He's extremely humble. He never insists that there's a guitar solo. I play a couple solos on this record, and it would be something like, for instance, one of the songs. It's called Shattered Sorrow. I demoed it because it was a song that I had written, and I put the guitar solo in the demo. And typically, I will just play a bullshit solo because I don't fancy myself a lead guitar player necessarily. And then I'll show it to him and I'll say, okay, so I marked the timestamp where I think a solo should go with the bullshit solo I played. And in that instance, Jason was like, no, man, that's killer. Just play that one. We'll refine it, and then that could be the solo on the record. So it really, yeah, just if a song doesn't need it, it doesn't get it. If it needs it, we'll put it in there. You know, I think Jason loves the riff as much as he loves the solo, so we're not hurting his feelings. And you know, he's kind of been the one a couple times to say, like, we've asked, like, where do you want the solo to be, and he's kind of said no solo. The riffs are good enough, you know, song works without it. So
I think either way, this album is very guitar centric, and I mean that's the case for all of your records. I mean, you guys depend heavily on the guitar sound to bring the listener in and keep the listener glued. And I thought on this album was no different, regardless of length or whatever. The essence of the songs always feel to me like they start and they finish with a guitar sound.
cool. Yeah, I know. Thank you, man. We study the riff. I know I do for sure. That's the thing for me that is always paramount in a good thrash metal song. If there's not a good, solid, catchy riff, I lose my attention pretty quickly. Sometimes the showy stuff, you know, I don't always like all the technical stuff. There's a time and a place. I think we have a lot of technical riffs on this album, but we really try to do it tastefully, only where it makes sense. I know that I can play guitar. Jason knows he can play guitar. We don't need to convince everybody all the time that we can play guitar well. We want to write a good song, right? So I think we try to let the music speak for itself. Sometimes it's simple, and simple works, and we don't fight that. You know, if a riff is simple and it fits, cool.
And the vocals too. The vocals on this record, in my humble opinion, are the glue that holds it all together. First of all,
Thank
I
you, man.
love the place where they are in the mix. They have a very distinct approach, and I felt like they gave the album a lot of depth because they're not stationary. Like I felt like there was a lot of movement in the vocal performance, the way they interacts with the rest of the sound. Was this album different when it came to recording the vocals? Did you guys approach it differently?
It was the same process, but I approached it differently because I have never been the front man of a band before. I've been in many bands, like most musicians have been. I started playing guitar when I was 12. I think I started my first band when I was 11. You know, that whole thing where it's like I don't play anything yet, but I want to be in a band. So I kind of came into the idea of playing guitar, and then from 12 until Wraith started, I only ever played guitar in bands. So for me, writing lyrics and then finding out how to place lyrics in songs that I wrote was challenging. And I think I definitely did what was comfortable, which on the early Wraith records, it's very just primitive. It just fits the way that you would assume it would fit. I just did it the way that the pattern made sense for me to do it. But I think after being in the band for so long and writing so many songs, I personally challenged myself to try to do some things that were a little bit different vocal melody wise. So I'm really glad that you noticed it, because that was something that I was very conscious of when I was writing this. You know, there had been songs that I had rewritten 2 or 3 times because I thought, well, I'm just going back and doing the thing that I did on Undo the Chains, you know, where I was fitting vocal parts to guitar parts because I have to sing it and play it live. And I thought this time I'm going to try to push myself a little bit. And if it takes more practice and more time spent playing guitar and singing the songs, I'll do that. But I want it to be something that, I feel like everything on this record has its place and it all stands out when it needs to stand out. And I wanted to make sure the vocals weren't just kind of an afterthought. Like a song has to have lyrics, so I'm just going to fit the lyrics where they go. I really tried to take the time to craft them in a way that was melodic and kind of stood out on their own. So it was definitely an intentional thing for this record.
Did you second guess yourself a lot during that process?
Oh yeah, I always second guess myself, so it was no different.
Nothing new, nothing new there.
Yeah, that part was very much the same. Yeah, you never know. Music is weird, man. It's art. So I always try to explain. It's like you spend all this time by yourself crafting something, and then you show it to everybody. Like, what if somebody doesn't like it? You know, that's the reality, though, that people might not like it. You have to be very confident and comfortable with what you created. And I think from the lyric placement and melody of the vocals, I am very comfortable with it. And if it's different, I hope it's different for the better. But yeah, it's always an unnerving thing. The first single comes out, you're reading the comments, making sure people dig it, checking, feedback. Yeah, it's like exposing something you made to the world, right? It's challenging.
For somebody who spends a lot of time on YouTube posting videos and with our own channel, don't read the comments.
Oh yeah,
don't read comments, dude.
I'm sure you catch one every once in a while, and you're like, God damn it! Like,
sometimes I'm like, there's those comments that give you absolutely no hope on humanity, but then there's the one that you're like, oh no, there is still some hope for humanity after all.
Definitely, and you got to bank on those ones because there's more of those. Honestly, there's more of those.
Yeah, it's sometimes the bad ones you got to take it with a huge grain of salt and kind of laugh about it, because I don't mind a bad or a criticism or a bad comment as long as it's creative. Just
Sure.
just do it in a like
Right.
if you're telling me that I'm fat and I'm bald, that's not creative. It's not even funny. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Find a
yeah,
better way.
yeah, find a better way to insult me. At least give me that. At least put some effort into insulting me to make me feel like I was worth your time. You know what I'm saying? Like
Sure.
that's you put time into making the music. So if somebody's going to critique it, at least make an effort.
Right. Yeah. Come on. Yeah. Be unique. Be creative.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. When I listen to your music, I honestly I really love the sound that you guys have. I really enjoy the style. I really enjoy the approach. There was a moment in time where a lot of bands had that sound, had that approach. It's died out quite a bit. You guys are one of the few bands that still carries this flag. What is it for you, the sound of the band, the essence of the band that stays true and connects with you and allows you to still feel creative enough to continue to make music?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. I think so I always say this about music in general because I mean everybody likes I don't just like metal, I like tons of different music. And to me, when I listen to a song, if I believe that the artist is genuine, then I'm in. I'm sold. It doesn't necessarily even matter what it is. If I can tell that that is the best representation of the music they like, you got me. I'm your fan. So I think for us, we aren't making music for other people, as selfishly as that sounds. I am beyond grateful and happy that so many people like it and that it resonates the same way with them as it does with me. But ultimately, I am satisfying my wants and needs first. And I think that's kind of the general idea in the band. We want to make a song that we would like to listen to or see played live. And I think the bands that were doing it, because you're right, there were a lot of bands before, even, obviously way back in the 80s for sure, bands were doing it, a lot of attitude, didn't necessarily care about how complicated it was. It was all about packing a punch. And then I think that torch was kind of relit in the late 90s, early 2000s, and it has died off a bit, but we are more than honored to continue to wave that flag. For us, it's about the intensity, and that is the stuff that we like. We mean it. When we say no bullshit speed and thrash metal, that's kind of the brand. That's what we're going for. And we want to operate and push ourselves within that. We don't want to say every song is going to be a minute and a half and two riffs. On this record, there's some 4.5 minute long songs with lots of riffs, but we feel as though that is the still no bullshit speed and thrash. It's not a second longer than it needs to be, and that's kind of always our mentality.
For me, the barometer of how much I like a song when you guys put it out is always, does it make me feel like want to grab a chair and smack somebody over the head with it? If the
Beautiful.
answer is yes, then the song is good. That's kind of
Yeah.
how I look at it. And this album has a bunch of them. It almost it feels like you're at WWE and just giving everybody chair shots. At least that was the vibe that I got from this record. So I think you guys are nailing it and creating an album that really represents the band and the style of the sound well. Do you have bands that you've looked up to over the years that were hugely influential on you creating this band and creating this sound?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, early Metallica is the biggest one. The first four records were probably the most monumental metal or just music probably I've ever heard. I think listening to the first four Metallica records really truly kind of changed my life because those records are all pack that punch, right? If you listen to Kill 'Em All and you don't want to knock somebody out with a chair, something is seriously wrong because that's the vibe. It's that's what it's giving you, And I think later on, I mean, Motorhead falls in that category. I was really, really, really into punk rock before I was into metal. So I still listen to bands like the Ramones or Black Flag, Minor Threat. All that gives me that same feeling. And then kind of during the resurgence, the Municipal Waste, Toxic Holocaust, Midnight, those were bands that I listened to and I felt like they were my bands. I thought they were new bands that I found that were giving me the same feeling that those first four Metallica records gave me. But the Metallica records, they're not mine. I found those later on, and they had belonged to the generation prior to me. But then Toxic Holocaust, The Waste, Midnight, they made records that became my records. And I thought that they were kind of the ones that were waving that flag. So I wanted to kind of an amalgamation of all of that influence, do something that, we could do for the next generation, the generation just under us.
Yeah, it's a sound that I equate to working men's metal. It has a little bit of that, no bullshit, no filters, no nothing, just kind of attitude. As you guys are preparing for the tours, for the shows, when you have a new record out, obviously people expect you to play some of the new stuff. You have to promote the new album, but people also want to hear some of the older stuff. Is it becoming a little bit more difficult keep everybody happy considering the time frame that you have for your set?
Definitely. Yeah, it's tough. I think there's certain songs we feel we have to play. Devil's Hour has been one of those songs. I think since Absolute Power was released, we've never not played Devil's Hour. I feel like people would be disappointed if they came to a show and we didn't play that song. But there's other songs that we sometimes get tired of playing. So it's nice when you have new music that you can actually introduce to people, because then the set remains fun and fresh for us. We're still playing our favorite songs, which, I mean, ironically enough, typically are everybody else's favorite songs too. So the ones that we don't get tired of playing are the ones that most people want to hear. And then we get to introduce new songs. And sometimes the new songs don't go well. And then after the show, when we're in the hotel room, we go, okay, that was kind of a dud. Let's swap it out. Maybe there's another song on the record that we can attempt to dust off and start to play during live sets that people might like more. Or maybe it's just like you said about sequencing. Maybe we played that new stuff too early in the set, and people are going to need 5 or 6 old songs before we play the new one. So yeah, it's just all part of it. It's part of the challenge. You know, you want to play the stuff you like, but you have to play the stuff that people like. And I definitely understand and appreciate that.
My last question for you is still about the road because being on the road is not as glamorous as some people think. You know, traveling on a van from town to town, sleeping in the van sometimes sleeping in a motel. It's rough. Like you guys really put your monies where your mouth is, or whatever the expression goes. What do you do when you're on the road in order to unwind a little bit and kind of keep a fresh mindset? Because I'm sure it's not easy.
No, I mean, I think the good part about being in a band, especially with being in a band with people that you genuinely like, is that there's always something to do, and sometimes that's watching TV and making jokes in the hotel room. I mean, that alone is enough to pass a lot of time. You know, everybody can relate to standing around with your buddies and bullshitting. Like, we just do a lot of that. Depending on where we're at, sometimes it's, well, that place looked cool. Let's go for a hike. You know, let's walk to the top of that thing and check it out. There's a restaurant here we want to go to. Let's get a beer somewhere. Let's go to the gym, go to the pool. You know, it's just a lot of regular stuff. You know, it's because the show itself is so short. You know, I think that's the other thing. It's you get to the venue early, you load in, you sound check, you set your merch up, and then it's, well, see you in 5 hours. You know, just to play 35 minutes. So there's a lot of idle time, and in that idle time, it's really just about being around people that you like and that you get along with, because you can make anything fun. Literally, I think we've passed time sitting on the front steps of a venue for hours, just bullshitting, you know, just kind of coming up with stories or walking around, getting food. It's all very, it's not exciting stuff, you know. Like you said, it's not always that glamorous. I think the idea of the rock star life is kind of, that's a bygone era. And now it's really kind of boring. I think if people saw what we did, it's just sit around in gym shorts and bullshit until it's
Yeah,
time to play.
I hear you, man. Like I get to the venues early a lot to do interviews in person, and I see bands showing up at 12 o'clock in the afternoon to do their load in and sound check, and like you said, so that come 7 o'clock, 7:30, you play a 30-minute set, and then your night is done again.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of time, that goes into that 30-minute set that fans don't necessarily understand or even appreciate or know. So it's not just like you guys just show up and play. So keeping your mind fresh and staying in a good mood and good spirits is always a great way. And
Yeah.
maybe watch some
That
Rick and
part,
Morty.
that part, yeah, right. That part's easy though, honestly. If you like the music, I mean, I always consider myself so extremely lucky. Like, who am I to complain? I get to travel around, play songs that we wrote with people that I like. I mean, if I have to sit around for 6 hours and bullshit with my friends, poor me, right? Like, you're not
I
gonna
know,
catch
I
me,
know.
catch me complaining.
It's a pretty
Sign
good
me.
full-time job.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, well, not we all have full time jobs, so
I know,
pretty
but
good.
for that time, for the period you're on tour, that's your full-time job.
Yeah, right. Pretty good other full time job.
Time job.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Matt, thank you very much for your time, and I really appreciate talking to you about the record, about the band. All the best with the release on June 28th on Prosthetic Records. Unfortunately, like I said, I'm going to miss you guys on this run, but I hope to see you guys at some point in time because you guys kick ass. Now, I just make sure that there's no chairs at the show that I show up to.
I'm gonna bring
Otherwise,
extra
there'll
chairs.
be mayhem.
Yeah, I'm bringing extra chairs just for you.
If there's no chairs, I'll just do RKOs out of nowhere.
Hey, there you go. Thank you so much for having me, man. Really appreciate it. Thank you for the feedback on the record too. It certainly means a lot. We're looking
Oh,
forward
no
for it.
problem. My pleasure. My pleasure. All the best. Enjoy the weekend. Have a good time.
Cheers. Thanks, buddy.
Take care,
Take
man.
care.
Bye.